Hello and welcome. I'm just going to dive right in. Exodus 34:6. This talks about God's character. He's compassionate, he's gracious, he's slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness and truth, forgiving. However, at the end of that, people who have created crimes or are guilty against God's law and things that have been set up in place to protect humanity will be punished. In Genesis 1:26, it says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness," and God blessed them. Verse 28. The dictionary meaning for image is a representation of the external form of a person or a thing in the art world. Well, I guess we can look at that as we are God's workmanship and we are his artwork. We're a masterpiece. And we're also created in his image. Image word in the Hebrew 6754 means meaning, shade, or a phantom. In his likeness, it's his resemblance. That's the Hebrew word 1823. To be blessed is an act of adoration, made or declared sacred, favored, and set apart. Hebrew word for that is 1288. However, man has free will. God gave us all a free will. And with being given a free will, we're allowed to make choices. Right and wrong, we can make those choices. I think it's important to go back to God's character. And all the things that I listed never say that doing certain crimes against humanity or people, small, weak, young, old, whoever, it's never okay. Obviously, our hearts are pretty heavy. I think our minds are heavy. What we have seen and are witnessing in this day and age is horrific. There is no excuse for it, and it's extremely sad, and I don't even know if I have the appropriate words for how I'm feeling, and I'm sure if you're watching this, I'm sure you can completely identify with that and understand that. So forgive my ramblings on this. But I got to thinking that I was reading in Psalm 34 today, and it talks about God coming near the brokenhearted and saving the crushed in spirit. And if you take refuge in him, then you're not found guilty. It also talks about he turns his face against people who have done evil, and the memory of them shouldn't be anymore, and they're going to be cut off. So I'd actually like to talk about the law. There were, in the Old Testament, in the Torah, there were 613 laws that were given. And as believers, we've been taught that we're now free from the law. Jesus came to save us, and now we're not bound by the law, and, all this stuff. And although that's true to an extent, as far as we don't have to, do sacrifices anymore to atone for sin, or Thanksgiving offerings, or, all these rules around that. But when you actually look at the law, it means that it provides teaching, direction, guidance, and the Torah word is actually twofold. It comes from the word hurrah. I may not be saying that right. Sorry, Hebrew is not my first language. However, it means that, so the Torah, the first part, is like I said, the teaching direction, but the Orah or aura means fire or light. It's a light. In its guiding, it's this guided light piece. And when you look through it, there are a lot of things in the Torah or the law that we still follow. There are good hygiene references. There's morals and values, living with community, keeping humanity sacred. There's certain things around eating just to keep you healthy. There's practices for good health along with that, what to do when people are sick, how to care for those people, how to care for widows and orphans and people that weren't even part of Israel, but how to care for even the outsider. There are so many practices and pieces that we still use today. And I think it's important to remember that the law isn't just a bunch of rules to show how, like, we can't live up to them, which that was a piece of it. So I'm not saying it's not, but that's not all of it. A lot of it we still hold to today, if you were to actually read through it, which we're just not. I don't know how often we're taught this, how often this comes up or whatever, but I'm going to challenge you on it. Read it. It's the first 5 books of the Bible. Go ahead and read it. It's just a short little read. You'll be fine. But anyway, that's why I'm going to be using references regarding the Torah and the law, because I do believe they're still very important and they're valid and we use it. Leviticus 18 talks about how you cannot be sleeping with your mother, your father, your sister, your cousins, your aunts and uncles, all this stuff. Do we still hold that today? Or just because Jesus came and died for us, that's no longer what we're under? I hope we'd still use it today. And sadly, in some places, we don't. And that's a whole nother video session, whatever. But it's not okay. The 10 Commandments, absolutely. We still use those. That's an obvious one. So where does that bring us? I was going through, and as I was thinking about specifically what happened this week with the 19 precious lives that were lost, children, and the 2 adult precious lives that were lost, I was going through, and in Exodus, the Hebrews at the time were under a horrible Pharaoh who wanted power and control, and the Hebrews were really getting big in number. We know that there was about 600,000 men, but when you add on women and children, I'm going to take a little liberty here, but that could have been close to 2 million people. And the Pharaoh was pretty intimidated by that. So who did he go for? Who was the weakest ones? He went for the babies and ordered that they be thrown into the Nile. Is that okay? Was God okay with that? No, he wasn't. I think about Molech, the god who requires child sacrifice through fire and burning. It's very specific, again, in actually Leviticus 18, where it talks about you do not throw your babies in fire. That's completely against my law. No. Again, that's something we should be following. And you can take that on differently. Our child sacrifice might look a little bit different now. I don't know. But you look at the foster system and those babies that these families that have been trained and take them in. These children have been through horrific situations. And basically, they've been put through fire. But we see it today. It's sick. It's sick. And thank God for those foster families that take in those babies and work toward healing and love and whatever that means for that child's future. Those families have been incredible. But that was something that happened then, and it's something that happens now, and it's not okay. In Kings and in Jeremiah, it talks about how even God's own people fell into that and did horrible things to their children. And when we fall away from God and his word and his truth and who he is and who we are in his image, we are just as capable of doing sick and horrible things. There are still awful things happening even in the church. People are being hurt and abused, not taken seriously, and oftentimes people take scripture out of context to hurt even more. By not doing anything, you're hurting them even more. And again, God created us in his image. We are blessed, we are precious, and he does not condone or say it's okay to hurt another human being. I think about the rape and abuse that happened in the Bible, and it still happens today. You look at it, and in the 10 Commandments, it talks about don't murder. It talks about rape not being okay in the Torah. If you are a victim of a crime against your will, I'm going to be putting some resources at the bottom of this. A lot of great resources that you're welcome to check out. But what I want you to take away is your life, it matters. You are valuable, you are precious. And I'm so sorry for whatever you may have had to endure, but you matter. Your story matters. And just because men or humans have done things that are wrong against other humans doesn't mean that God says this is okay. It isn't. And so I do want to leave you with a couple things about what God says. Kind of rambled around on there, but I'm just going to go back. It says, don't murder. That's in Exodus 20:13. Children are a reward and a gift. Psalm 127:3. God knew us before we were born. That's a reference to Jeremiah and Psalms. Rape and forcing yourself on someone is never okay. Deuteronomy 22. Your body is holy. You can have respect for yourself. You don't have to do things against your will. And even if you think that's the only way to overcome or deal with things of life right now, and the Lord talks about that in Deuteronomy 23:18. God values families, and he really does draw lines against hurting each other and around how a family should look, and that is in Leviticus 18. And I'm going to leave you with one last thing. God is compassionate and gracious. He is slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness and truth. He forgives sin, but he does judge. And although he does want people to know him and to repent, there's still a consequence to sin. And I just hope that at the end of all this, you hear that all life is valuable, it's important. We are in God's image. And when things happen against us, against our will, or even to the sweet, precious babies that don't have a voice yet, it's not okay. So I know this one was a little bit heavy and it was hard. It was hard for me. I mean, this was the third time I've tried to tape this. Can I just tell you, this was a really difficult one. Plan on there being more. I know it's been a while since I've posted a video. It's been like a month. If you have children, you understand that May is ridiculous. I mean, let me tell you. So, but I'm trying to put together some more content, and I am hoping I might take a little change of pace or a little detour or a little turn in my channel. So keep your eye out for that. Look forward to it. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be hard, but I hope that you're willing to go there on that journey with me. I'm going to put a lot of my notes and references at the bottom, and, you know, feel free to share this video on your social media if you feel like somebody needs to hear it. I would actually welcome you to share these. I really feel like God has called me to this. I don't know why half the time, but I'm here. I'm saying yes. And I just hope that on some level that this blesses you, and that you just know how valuable and important you really are. And get ready for some exciting other videos coming up. So, and again, I'll put some of those resources at the bottom, and don't be afraid. Go ahead and like my channel and subscribe, do all the things. I don't know. This is what people say, right?